Hello, hello! Welcome to Ashes of the Singularity Escalation. The Hunter Prey expansion has just launched, and so I'm going to be doing a PHC showcase of the new base defenses. My name is Callum McCall, or GG the Machine, as my alias, and I played this game, I guess last night, depending on when I post this, versus Creature of Existence, who's a member of our MVP. That's our internal, well, not really internal, it's our beta testers. They sign an NDA, so we show them all the cool things before the public does, and they're very helpful to give us feedback, to do testing with, and yeah. So on this game, I was like very determined to use all of the new stuff for the sake of this video, but I didn't have to go out of my way too much to use this stuff. Basically, it's more a lot of the new content, especially I think for PHC, is more situational than I think people expect with a DLC. And the reason why that is because Ashes already had a huge amount of base defenses. You had, for PHC, you had the Smarty, the Barrage, Sentinel, Oblivion, Drone Bay, Repair Base. That's 6? Yeah, 6 base defenses, which is like huge. You know, most RTS games only have like 1 or 2 base defenses, but we already had lots. So the base defenses, most of them are like tier 2 or tier 3, and they have a particular utility that they provide. So for example, the Stasis Hammer stuns things, the Nova Tower, it shreds the shields. And so you want to think a little bit more carefully about like when you build them. You don't just kind of build them willy-nilly. And then you have the shotgun towers that upgrade from the emergency turret alongside the machine gun turret. Either of those are an option that you can do. So my plan here for this mission is to get the center really fast. Okay, my apologies. My coworker just like walked in and was like, "Are you doing a video?" So excuse the perhaps sudden cut. Anyway, so yeah, I want to get the middle real fast, and I want to lock the middle down with a shotgun turret or an emergent or a machine gun turret. They're really good because they don't require an engineer to build them, so you can get them a lot of times in positions where it's just not viable to build anything else, and then they're really powerful. The fact that they're tied behind the emergency turret means you got to pay Quanta for them, and then you still have to pay the upgrade cost to upgrade those turrets. So they're quite powerful and they're really fun to use. So that's my plan: get the middle, throw down a emergency turret real fast. You can't use emergency turrets outside of friendly territory, so you have to capture it first before you can deploy it. That wasn't always the case, but it is now, and that actually was a very important change. It was a while ago, but it means that the turrets can be much stronger. Where originally the turrets were pretty weak, but like they had to be because you could put them anywhere, so you could do some pretty silly cheese stuff. But anyway, so I went for a quick Sky Factory here to get some Furies, the anti-air fighters. My opponent Creature went for the radioactives region first, which I don't recommend, but it means you can do kind of cheesy stuff with air units. So I just wanted to make sure I had some air fighters ready. Now, as you can see, I've called down my turret, and I upgraded it to a shotgun turret. So the shotgun, as you may expect, is very short range, but it just has massive damage. It can blow up most cruisers in like 4 shots probably, which doesn't take long. I think you'll see it here. Yeah, so he's charging forwards with the Avenger cruisers, and I'm baiting him into the shotgun, and it's opening up now. Tears that one down in only 3 shots. So he reconsiders. That's a wise move. You can outrange it, however, with a lot of things. Obviously, the artillery cruisers can outrange them, but even the nemesis of PHC can outrange that one. So the best thing to do in that situation is just build a destructor artillery cruiser. Or go around it. That works too, if you can. It has 500 range. Most turrets like that have about 800. Yeah, so he sneaks around it. Frigates, however, not so clever, but the Avengers do. Now, I'm going pretty heavily in frigates. I got a second factory because I have, as you can see my resources in the top left, I have a lot of metal that I can spend, but I don't have any radioactives. So if you're in that situation, you want to go for frigates because they only cost you metal. Unless you go for like advanced frigates like the medics and such. Anyway. So now I have the right side too. So now I'm feeling good. So now I'm throwing down more of these emergency turrets. That one's a machine gun turret. Shotgun. Feeling kind of sad right now because he can't hit the Avengers, but the Avengers are being idle there. They should have been doing stuff, but yeah. So Creature is a very defensive player, which doesn't really work because I have the map, so I have more resources than him. As much as I try to tell him, like, you know, don't go radioactives first, go metal first, cap the map, you'll get more resources. He loves kind of turtling. I mean, I love turtling, but I love turtling when I have more than 50% of the map control. And if you like turtling, then the Hunter Prey DLC, or the Hunter Prey expansion rather, is exactly what you want. Because then you can use all kinds of cool defenses for PHC, and you will see them in this game, so stay tuned. So all three sides are locked down. I'm in my happy place. Once I get rid of this cheeky Avenger, yeah, it's dead now. So now I can go back to like solidifying this position in the middle. That's actually a bit of a problem there because he's got some units, but it's okay. Emergency turret to the rescue. Now on their own, the emergency turrets are good versus frigates, or at least modest amount of frigates, but you really want to upgrade them to deal with cruisers or to large groups of frigates. So that's my plan. I'm going pretty tech heavy. A lot of quantum relays, even refineries this early. Where against a more aggressive opponent, you would have to go like a lot more cruisers. Because like what kind of would normally happen in this situation is that your opponent would just start getting artillery and start sieging you immediately. You like on all those flanks, because there's nothing stopping him from just getting a destructor, the artillery cruiser, and then just firing at the base defenses, the machine gun, the shotgun, like whatever I have. The only thing, there we go, machine gun turret opening up. So the machine gun has a lot more range. It also has an air attack. It's just not quite as, doesn't have that raw firepower. It also costs more too. But very fun turret. I love the sound effect as well. It's if you've played Siege of Centauri, it's like the same sound effect we use for the Gatling gun, and it's an amazing sound effect. It's like I'm not going to impersonate. I almost impersonated the sound effect, so be glad that I didn't. But it's fun to use. Yeah. We did actually update a lot of sound effects in 2.9, so a lot of the things sound nicer. If you've played a lot of Ashes, you probably recognize like already that some of the things are different. The Avenger, the Sky Cleanser, those are units that we've already seen, but then there's plenty of others that haven't and that we won't see. So there we have the Stasis Hammer in the middle. So that one has a lot of range, and it can disable anything for several seconds. It particularly shines against cruisers, against dreadnoughts and juggernauts, just because they're much more expensive units. Against cruisers, it's like, you know, we're probably better off just building Sentinels and Oblivions. But when you have multiple Stasis Hammers and they're charging at you with a Dreadnought, then it is a bad time for the Dreadnought, because the Dreadnought just keeps getting stunned. So there I'm using my Optimize Orbital to get more and more income, building more refineries. Now I'm building the refineries in a pretty greedy spot, because it's like closer to his base than my base. But the reason why I'm doing that is because in the sides, there's 3 times radioactives, whereas in my base, all of those regions are only 2 times. There's only 2 deposits, and the refineries are multiplied by however many deposits there are. So you want to put them in regions that are richer. But it depends on how confident you are that your opponent won't just destroy them, because they're a pretty big investment. So yeah, here we see I'm fielding a Artemis artillery cruiser. That one's going to siege his defenses down. He's got a heavy annihilator, pulverizer, and annihilator, so I can blow those up pretty easily. So the artillery cruisers, they were changed a lot in 2.9. They gained the ability to target units, which they did not have with their main weapons, and that's a pretty big deal because they have a lot of damage, a lot of range. They track moving targets. Well, like let me rephrase that. They will predictively aim in order to hit moving targets, but they won't track them. So the opposite of what I said. They don't track them, which means that you will hit them if they are moving the same, like if they move the same path that they originally were. But if you change direction, it no longer hits. So and that happens automatically in battle. Like you don't have to micro things. When units are engaging, they kind of bob around a lot, which means the artillery will not hit them. But here I have a Nova Cannon. Nova Cannon with a artillery post. You can see that shield damage is beautiful, knocking out the shields of all of those units in the blast range, which is quite a heavy blast range. I think it does 125 shield damage per hit, so that's a total of 500. Cruisers have like, I don't know, 700 shields, so you won't hit all of them, but yeah, it definitely makes a big difference. So pairing that with the artillery post, or just using it to soften up enemies before a fight is very, very powerful. The way that you would counter that as substrate is that you would build the caregivers and or the regenerators. Both of those are options of replenishing shields. Generators are static, but a bit more powerful. Caregivers are mobile. So we actually buffed them too, because there has to be ways to counter that. We didn't want to just be like, hey, here's this really cool new powerful thing. Good luck, substrate. I think that Hunter Prey adds a lot of like really OP sounding things, but then you realize that there are actually counters to all of those OP sounding things. And we won't quite see them in full effect, but basically PHC has an artillery cruiser that just outranges everything. So, I mean, everything other than the artillery post, which is going to just tickle dreadnoughts. And then for substrate, you have the falling star, which you send it in, and when it dies, it blows up, disabling all nearby defenses. So that's really powerful if you just get it in position and it blows up and everything's knocked out for like 15 seconds. You also have the clutch of eggs, which is it spawns a bunch of spiders that overwhelm things. So I think even though you have ways of turtling, you can also crack the turtler. So what do I have there? I've got Stasis Hammer, Machine Gun, Sentinel, Barrages, Nova, Artillery Post, and I'm upgrading to some anti-air, a Falcon, and a Illuminator. So I'm getting all of my bases covered. I don't want to get swamped by any aircraft. That's why I have Furies patrolling to make sure they can shoot down any aircraft that show up. And as I was saying earlier in the game, I'm spamming a lot of frigates. I got like 4 factories because I was just getting a huge excess of metal, and that's because I'm spending so much radioactives. I'm getting a lot of metal refineries, or rather just refineries, on both metal and radioactives regions, and also spawning a lot of quantum relays, and all of those things are very radioactives intensive. Plus, those advanced defenses that I'm building all over the map, those are very intensive on radioactives also. Okay, so now he's caught me off guard here. He's sending in a Retributor Dreadnought. He's got a fair bit of supporting units too, frigates, cruisers, artillery, scarabs, all kind of stuff. So this has me a little worried. I have a lot of frigates, but they don't have much damage. Now, defending that region, I have a shotgun turret, which is opening up on his retributor, and it's doing a lot of damage. Also has a sentinel there firing. Needs to focus that one down. He's a little slow with it, though. I think he didn't have vision on the high ground properly. So that shotgun is just doing way more damage than it otherwise should have. He didn't focus that one down. But it has been destroyed. The sentinel's still there, but that finally gets focused down as well. But his retributor is already taken about 3/4 health. That shotgun was just doing beastly damage. That's a pro tip for the shotgun. Put it on the top of a high ground position, on a cliff or a ramp, because by the time your opponent ascends the high ground to start firing at it, they've already taken so much damage. So you really want to have radar or aircraft to scout for that if you're assaulting that position. There's also a stasis hammer. I think maybe that's why he didn't kill it, because the stasis hammer was disabling that retributor, so it wasn't firing for many seconds. I also have a battery tower there in both positions, or actually they've been renamed to the kinetic accelerator. A bit more descriptive. Battery was a bit too vague, so we wanted to kind of tell you what it does, rather than like, well, what does a battery tower mean? It doesn't really say much. So that gives it 20% damage bonus to everything nearby. So that makes a big difference in those fights. So I'm trying to build a Minos cannon here. It has a long build time, heavy cost. That's why it's massive. And we can see the stasis hammer is opening up now, going to be disabling those. It went for the scarab though. But the retributor is charging in. We see creature is using the regenerate orbital. That's keeping his shields back at full, or trying to replenish it. But that's the Nova cannon counteracting that. Barrager is there. The falling star detonates. It tags the barrager. It tags both of the stasis hammers. Not quite all the defenses in the back lines, but gets most of them. However, my frigate army is just swarming his, and it's preventing his retributor from getting within range of those defenses, because he isn't focus firing them. He seems to just be attack moving. Stasis hammer is continuing to stun the dreadnought, preventing it from firing. Another regenerate orbital, keeping the shields alive, and he is reinforcing units in. He has the gateway orbital, which is summoning more and more units. That's why he's able to replenish his forces here. But his dreadnought's getting lower and lower. I still have some air units in the sky that I could send over to support this one. But I still have the stasis hammer there. That's what's like keeping his dreadnought at bay. And this Minos cannon is almost done. And as soon as that finishes, that can turn and just demolish that dreadnought. It's already wounded, so as soon as it fires, we're going to see that one just blow that up immediately. Very long range is the Minos cannon. High damage, high armor piercing. So it's just perfect against the dreadnoughts and the juggernauts. It does have a long reload, and it has a slow rotation, and it overkills a lot, so it can't even engage frigates, and it's quite weak against even cruisers, or at least like a lot of cruisers. But yeah, against a dreadnought there like that, it's perfect. What you'd want to do against that is say have falling stars to blow that up. The Minos cannon costs, it's like about 2/3 the price of a single dreadnought. 2,200. Actually, I know, not quite that. It's like a little bit less than half. 2,200 metal. I don't remember the rest, but it also costs Quanta as well, which is quite unique. Only Juggernauts cost Quanta otherwise. Aside from then the quantum upgrades and the abilities. But in terms of actually units and buildings, the Minos cannon and the Juggernauts are the only things that cost Quanta. So, anyway, the point is it's a big investment, but it's came in at the right time in that situation. But with that dreadnought down, then I'm feeling pretty good here, because he doesn't really have any resources. He's quite contained. If he pushed through there with his dreadnought, that could have been a dicey situation if he was able to prevent that Minos cannon from being built. And I think he could have done that if he had his falling star in front to get a better disable. If he focused down the stasis hammer a little quickly, he could have done that. So I'm trying to scout there. Make sure he isn't building another dreadnought or like a big air unit swarm or something. Oh, and a pro tip when you're playing PHC. So a lot of these, well, all of these defenses are upgrades, aside from the Minos cannon. And so to build them, you have to first upgrade low tier towers. But when you use the Sapper orbital, it means that you can build all the defenses immediately on the map. And so it's just much easier. You don't have to like manually upgrade towers. And then it helps a lot with the machine gun and the shotgun towers, because every time you use emergency turret, the quanta cost ramps up by, I think, 10% or... yeah, 10%. And so eventually, if you spawned like 10 turrets, it starts to cost a lot more. Excuse me, a lot more. But the Sapper has shotguns and machine guns at a static price at 50. So it's a really good way to spam those turrets if you want to. They build pretty fast, so like they're a nice defense to like build before anything else. So you kind of see I'm doing that. I'm like getting some machine guns just to make sure that he can't retaliate, especially because they have air attacks as well. And then once I have a basic position of machine guns, then I can transition into like the heavier things. Like I can go for Minos cannon, Oblivion, stasis hammers, whatever. But if he had like actual firepower, like he had a dreadnought, he could just kill them pretty easily. So yeah, they're basically like a barrage tower in cost, except they cost less primary resources and they cost quanta instead. Release the machine gun. The shotgun then has the extra caveat of like, hey, it's really powerful but really short range, so you know, you could just have it get outranged. Anyway, so he realizes that he's calling the GG. Now I'm kind of trolling a little bit here in that I'm like leapfrogging Minos cannons forward. It is actually a viable strategy though. Like you can do that, is just leapfrog slowly forwards. Just keep getting more and more turrets. Because if he attacks me now, I could retreat into my other Minos cannon, and it has enough range that he could just get his units caught without realizing it. And yeah, that's a pretty nasty thing to do. Anyway, yeah, so what Creature's saying here is that like the shotguns and machine guns, didn't they have a requirement? They used to require the orbital fabricator. But I think that just didn't really make them that viable, because it took kind of ages to get them, and by the time you would get them, it made it harder to really justify going them when you could just go, say, barrages. And also, it was, one of the problems too is that like I kind of wanted to have an early defense for Hunter Prey, because everything is tier 2. It's nice to have like a new tower that's not exactly tier 1, but like tier 1.5, we'll say. So without having any requirements, you can get those much earlier on, like I did. Like you can make it a strategy. Is the point? Is, hey, I'm gonna go rush the middle, so that I can then rush a shotgun turret and then try to solidify around that. But apart from those two turrets, everything else requires a building. The kinetic accelerator requires the power regulator. Nova, stasis hammer require the energy energy projector, and then the Minos requires the orbital command. So they all require things, just not those two turrets. I mean, their tech requirement is emergency turret. So now I'm sieging his Nexus. You know you're having a bad time when your opponent's able to siege your Nexus with the Minos cannon. Now, I didn't quite realize this at the time, but he actually got the Nexus health upgrade, so this takes like a long time to close, because his Nexus has like triple the health. I don't know why he wanted to drag this out, but I was taking screenshots there because I thought it was kind of funny, but like, haha. Because like you would never get to this point, right? Because someone would just quit. They go, okay, you have a Minos cannon near my base, I probably can't win. Let alone like, okay, he has a Minos cannon in my base. I'm kind of sad though. I'm losing all my engineers here. The Nexus cannons and the pulverizers just killed like my entire army of engineers. So I can't quite build those Minos cannons in as little time as I would have liked. But anyway, this should be the last burst here, I think. Yeah, down he goes. So yeah, that was a nice game. That was a little showcase of the Hunter Prey buildings for the PHC. You got to see the machine gun, the shotgun, the Nova, the kinetic accelerator, although it's sort of harder to notice because it doesn't like directly shoot at things, it just has a little buff around it. And I didn't really mention it here because I forgot, but I was playing around it quite deliberately because it tells you the range of it in game with a little indicator, like the blue ring, when you hold down Alt. And you want to fight around that because it affects units as well as buildings. And so if you can like bait your opponent into that, or just make them attack into you when you have defenses there anyway, then that's going to give you a big edge. We saw the Stasis Hammer against his Dreadnoughts. We saw the Minos Cannon killing his Nexus, but also, you know, his Dreadnought as well. So we saw all the defenses, the Nova Cannons to shred the shields. So there's a lot of extra tactical options here in Hunter Prey, and I think that's why it's really fun, is it really synergizes with the existing defenses. In that game, I was kind of deliberately only building the Hunter Prey stuff because I wanted to talk about them in this video. But if I was like playing more seriously, I would like mix them with the existing defenses. Like every defense has its own kind of niche. Like the drone bays are really good versus frigates, for example. Barrages are just a general. They're kind of cheap because they don't cost much radioactives and not quanta like the other turrets. So they're like a nice sort of spammable tier 2 defense. So a lot of different defensive strategies to play with. And then Substrate have the opposite. They have a lot of really aggressive tools with their new units. So yeah, that's it. That is Hunter Prey for PHC. Perhaps I'll do a Substrate video as well. We'll see. But for now, thank you for watching. This is Hunter Prey. You can get it now on Steam. The link will be in the video description. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned and subscribe to the channel for more Ashes content and announcements. Thank you.